Container vegetable gardening advantages. G'day, folks. This is Small Space Produce, and today we are talking about a topic that we are very, very passionate about. A topic that makes growing your own vegetables and growing your own produce accessible to absolutely anyone. It doesn't matter how much space you have or lack thereof, I should say. You can grow just about anything in pots and bags and containers. And look, sometimes you have to choose the right pot for the right job or the right container. But essentially, if you look after them the right way, you don't need a lot of space. And really, growing anything you like is not out of your reach. So we want to passionately press you to investigate these opportunities. And today we're going to be sharing with you some of the advantages of using pots, bags, and containers to grow your vegetables. So the first one we're going to share with you today is maximising space. Look, have a look at the photo here. That is a tiny little balcony. And have a look at all those beautiful pots. They're growing a variety of wonderful things. And of course, not just all about vegetables. You can grow beautiful flowers in between as well. You don't need a great big garden bed to grow a lot of these plants and a lot of these vegetables. You can see in this photo here, just being a bit nifty with your space means you can fit a huge amount into a small area. Now, I will also mention, if you look at that photo, the option of vertically growing pots. So you can see there's a couple of levels here, which is a really good idea if you're short of space, and you can really maximise your opportunities to grow more vegetables. Now, as mentioned already, you can grow just about anything that you like in containers, bags, and pots. So please don't think it's just a few strawberries here or maybe a bit of spinach there. Look, sometimes you might need a slightly bigger pot, but to be honest, you can use a small pot a lot of the time. It just means you may have to tend to its needs just a little more often, a little bit more water, as it might dry out quicker for something like a tomato, for example, or maybe a little bit more food for something that grows voraciously. But don't discount growing anything. There's often dwarf varieties that you can grow as well that are more designed for our pots, bags, and containers. And look, even dwarf fruit trees you can grow in pots and bags and containers. So keep in mind that you are not that limited. In fact, just about anything is possible with the right pot and the right preparation. Now, another huge advantage is just versatility. You can make an area look absolutely fantastic. There's so many different options, from beautiful little raised beds to nice self-watering pots to pots on stands to hanging pots to hanging things off your fence. There are so many options. The versatility of growing our vegetables in pots, containers, and bags is really quite endless. And you don't have to necessarily buy something. You can repurpose things that you have at home already, whether that's a number of cans to grow your strawberries, whether it's buckets for potatoes. Look, obviously a self-watering pot might bring really good advantages, or a bag in some circumstances, and your veggies may do better. But look, if you don't have the budget to go and buy things, do not let that stop you. Okay, you can be very versatile in your different options and what you choose to grow. Now, our next really big advantage is just the control over our soil quality. Obviously, when we just throw things in a yard, we don't really know what that soil's gone through. It's really hard to know what sort of nutrients are left in that soil. So, look, you could obviously spruce it up with a little bit of food and hope for the best. But of course, also drainage, and is there rock underneath? There's all sorts of issues with growing in the yard. So a raised garden bed is always a wonderful way to go. But of course, if we don't have the space for that, essentially a potted bag or a container is a miniature raised garden bed. And we need to think of them that way rather than something that's really restrictive. And of course, you can put the perfect soil into that pot, and that way your vegetables that you're growing will have a really nice environment to survive. You can control drainage, you can control food, you can control all sorts of different things. But just being able to start with a really, really good base soil is a wonderful advantage of growing things this way. Now, easy maintenance is, of course, another really, really positive thing when it comes to growing our vegetables in containers, pots, and bags. Um, if you need to basically move something because you have realised that it's not the right spot, if you've decided you need to add a little bit of extra compost or add a little bit of topping on top to keep it all nice and fresh, the ease of maintaining your plants when they're in a pot are fantastic. If a few weeds sprout up, you can just pluck them out really easily, and you know that those weeds aren't connected by a bunch of roots to a heap of other weeds, and they're just going to come straight back. So the maintenance of our plants is a lot easier. Yes, there's a little bit more work when it comes to watering and potentially feeding, as we mentioned earlier, but in general, you'll find the maintenance is so much easier growing plants in this way. Now, mobility, we've already touched on that too. It's a fantastic thing to have. Look, you might have suddenly a really stinking hot day and you just want to move your precious plant to a shadier area, or you might just want to give an area a spruce up. You've got a brand new plant or a brand new vegetable that you want to really showcase and you've got something else in the way. You can just move them around and create a new setup. So think of that a bit like renovating your lounge room, or just changing up where the furniture is. You have that option at any time, and you certainly can't do that when growing things straight in the garden without a huge amount of work. Now, our next advantage is extended growing seasons. Again, this links in with our mobility a little bit. We can start our seeds inside, start our plants inside potentially if we are planning to grow this way. And of course, you can even bring a number of your vegetables inside and start growing them in there until they are a decent height, until they're ready to go outside and weather conditions are right. As we know, if you live somewhere where there's a frost, for example, putting those tomatoes out a little bit early can be an absolute death sentence. But in a situation like this, you can start them in a pot, sit them somewhere inside where they're nicely protected until you know it's safe to put them out. And not only can you control the temperature as well, but of course, being able to then bring them inside towards the end of the season may just mean you get just a little bit more produce. So just another advantage of growing your vegetables in pots and containers and bags. Now, pest control. There are so many great animals out there that help our vegetables to grow. But of course, there's many that find them just as delicious as we do. And of course, when they're out there in the wild, unsupervised, this can be a bit of a challenge. And particularly if there's a certain area in the garden that's just regularly got these pests there, you can't just move that whole section of garden. When you're growing things in a container, you can absolutely pick them up and move them to where you want them. So you really do have great advantages there when it comes to controlling pests. And of course, if the pest is living in the soil or disease is living in the soil, you have the option of simply throwing that out, putting fresh soil in, and that's going to really help control your pests and diseases that you might have to deal with. Now, accessibility, we believe everyone should be able to grow their own produce. And of course, accessibility is an issue for some. Look, even for younger people, if you're down working away on the ground all day long, it's extremely tiring. It is so much easier to have things at a better height where you don't have to bend over all day and put strain on your knees. And so having things in pots and bags and containers really allows you to place them in great spaces to make them accessible and make them easy to maintain. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, look, gardening's just slightly too hard to work for me, then look at growing vegetables in this way, because suddenly just a handful of pots, you can produce the most amazing amount of produce without putting your body under too much strain. Now, of course, aesthetic appeal should not be overlooked. I think there's something really special, just magical, about a really beautiful veggie garden and a container garden at that, where we've seen plenty of really nice pot plants and lovely little cottage garden style setups. But what will really wow people when they come around is to see all this produce, delicious, edible, healthy produce set up in a way that it looks really attractive. It's almost like a little sanctuary, a little oasis. And one of our favourite things to do when we have a number of vegetables growing in our pots and containers is to really set them up in a beautiful way. So it's this almost like a garden, a well cared for garden, but much more delicious than your standard cottage garden. So do not underestimate the aesthetic appeal of a really well set up garden purely using containers. Now, sustainability is something that we should all be aware of course. It's the number one threat that our world faces today environmentally. And something we don't think about, of course, is how far food has to travel to land on our plate sometimes. And when we look at the miles and miles that some of these foods will travel, it's quite extraordinary when in reality we could just be growing these on our balcony or in our backyard or even inside in many cases where the food travels zero distance at all. It's going to be tastier, it's going to be fresher. There's something special about the fact you grew it yourself and you are quietly saving the environment at the same time. Not to mention, of course, all the different insecticides and things that might be used elsewhere. You can choose to use absolutely none at all, and it's so much easier to do that when they're growing in a pot or a container or a bag. So, sustainability is something that should not be overlooked as a really important reason. Now, of course, why limit yourself to home? I think we all imagine growing our veggies at home, but we don't think outside that square. Why not start growing some veggies and some fruits at the office? Why not encourage the teacher of your kids' schools to start growing some food in the classroom and start teaching those valuable lessons for all the kids there as well? Look, I think an office with a handful of fresh strawberries, a tomato growing in the window, some zucchini on the windowsill, what an amazing thing to walk into. I think it can really make an office beautiful and just really shows utilizing that space and being able to live your passions even at work as well. So think outside that square. Where can you grow a vegetable where no one else has grown a vegetable before? Now, folks, just before we get on to some recommended products, we'd like to obviously ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just down the bottom there, please hit subscribe and also hit that little alarm so that way you can be notified when we do have more content. We really appreciate all of you taking this information in, and we're really excited to share it with you. But we'd love you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything and so you can support us. And what we'd like to do now is share some of our recommended products with you that might help you on your journey to growing your food at home in containers. And what we're sharing today are three books. Look, nothing like a great book where you can really start right. Okay, rather than sort of trial and error, burning yourselves and buying seedlings, then they die and then you're disappointed. Read a good book, learn a bit more about it so you can have success from day one. And it's just nice to go into a journey like this being fully armed with the knowledge that you need. So we're going to share three books with you today. And if you do purchase these through our website or through our YouTube channel, you will find these in the comments below. You'll also find our website there where you can jump on and subscribe and read some of our articles as we send them out. But if you purchase through our channel or website, we do get a very small commission from that, which helps us to contribute more content towards you. So the first recommended product today, this is a staple book for me, and it's probably my favorite. It probably helped to get me passionate about doing this in the first place. It's a wonderful book by the Little Veggie Patch Company. It's called An A to Z Guide to Growing Food in Small Spaces. Not only does it run through a heap of your favourite things to grow at home, but it's got great advice on when to plant them, sizes of pots to put them in, and just lots of great little neat tricks along the way as well that'll help you on your journey to growing food in small spaces. Now, the second one we want to mention today is it's a bit more detailed, and it's also a wonderful book. It's called The Vegetable Gardener's Container Bible. I love the fella in this book. He is the pot master. A lot more in-depth information. So it just depends how you like to take information in, but this one's certainly on our shelf and one that we do refer to regularly as well. And last but not least, of course, is Grow All You Can Eat in 3 Square Feet. And I think the name says it all there. It's a bit of a different style to the other two, but certainly worth a read. So consider getting yourself one, two, or even all of these books. Look, everyone has different bits of advice. You can pluck and choose what works for you, but these three are certainly on the money and will not steer you in the wrong direction. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate you coming along to hear what we have to say, and hopefully we are slowly building a passion in all of you. And it starts with one container, a bit of soil, one plant, and you can start your journey. And we know once you start, you simply won't be able to stop. So this has been Container Vegetable Gardening Advantages. Thank you and have a great day.